Continuing us the journey onward by Master Atlan in Chapter 78, Why This Happened. What does it mean to stand up against adversity? It seems like a simple inquiry, but even a question like that has many different answers depending on who is asked. And for those who have never had to truly face adversity themselves, they may ignorantly state that he should be faced directly and defeated without experience. That struggle, they may suggest that such a concept can be overpowered and weathered through with simple conviction and willpower. And for those more used to adversity and the sheer crushing force it can have against someone, they may suggest a more pragmatic method, perhaps one that suggests it better to avoid such despairing hopelessness and all those that would stomp on your hopes, or even depressingly that you should simply ignore or accept that there are those that will always stand in your way and live the rest of your life accepting that you will never truly be free from a metaphorical boot over your neck. For some, they have means and opportunities to face their adversity. For others, it was an impossible chance they claimed for by gritting their teeth and pushing forward to claim the right to fight. Adversity was an idea that had many faces and could be faced in just as many ways. But the truth is that despite unnoble effort or sheer desire, sometimes adversity could not simply be dealt with. How could you face adversity or an adversary who came to you and offered you a hand to crush those that kept you down, while making those offers in the fires they started and the corpses they made? That was the situation Adam Torres found himself faced against. I can realize our goal with or without you, the ebony-haired woman stated as her hands flying through with cases of dust and lean. She was offering him a delicious carrot while flaunting the stick over it, some kind of fire dust that he had never seen filtered off her fingers before she coiled it and offered a hand. So what do you say? What do I say? Adam slowly stepped forward, wary of the woman in front of him, and hand firmly gripping will and blush in case he needed to make a move. I'm apprehensive to take any deal with you while standing in a burning field filled with the corpses of my followers. They're not all dead, only the ones that tried to attack me even after I made it clear they had no hope. She smiled wryly. If they can't even understand a basic fact like that, perhaps I've done you a favor by thinning them out. It was clear her jest was not well received as Adam's gaze grew more hateful behind his mask. Cinder closed her eyes before opening them again. I apologize for having to resort to methods such as this. I had to get my point across, and only trying to reason with you through words didn't seem to be making such progress. So I resorted to more drastic methods. I'm sure you can understand that necessity. You dare compare our mission for equality to your request for an audience? I compare our desires to be heard by those that choose to ignore us, although yours is against a race that has denied you for its entire history, and mine is simply a discussion between two people on hopes of a mutually beneficial future. You may not yet understand how useful that future is, but I promise we have great things planned. Adam eyed the woman over carefully. He thought it strange that this woman and her lackeys would walk into their base of operations and risk their lives only to offer up a partnership with them. The White Fang's purpose was clear and obvious to force humanity to recognize the Faunus by any means necessary, but these fools wished to use them for whatever purpose they had in mind. Adam sent them away with their lives, and only just that because he was not in the mood to clean his tent viscera. But now this woman was standing here demanding the same deal, but discussing it as an offer. The air around her had already changed, becoming more confident and less patient, and it wasn't just her demeanor, but the air around her physically felt hotter. He glared at her through the slits of his mask. You've changed, as have you, she responded. You seem to have changed since we last met. You're less patient and more on edge. Something must have happened since we were last here. She looked him over carefully before a small smile tugged her mouth. What happened to you? A black hair billowing in the wind as he turned her back on him. Adam's patience snapped, and he dashed forward, covering distance between him and the woman in an instant. His sword glinted as it was pulled from his sheath, and the woman made no attempt to protect herself or run while he did so. Was she? Not even afraid of this. Adam lurched back from the kick that would have dented his temple. The bull faunus looked over and saw the young silver-haired boy had shifted over the ground in order to attack him. He twisted himself around and followed up with the kick that Adam avoided by jumping backwards. The moment Adam was out of the kicker's range, the green-haired girl had drawn her weapon and started to fire. Adam moved aside and dodged the first shot and drew the first few inches of his sword to deflect the following shots. When it was clear her firepower wasn't going to be enough, she scowled and swiped her revolver down until her blades emerged. Adam jumped to his feet and drew his sword, countering the girl's sickles with his blade and deflecting the boy's kicks with his sheath. He knocked them back both and started to engage them. These two were far more agile in their movement than he was, but he didn't need to jump around to match them. Emerald dashed up with her sickles and swung for his neck, but Adam's fierce parry forced her back off of her feet. The fawns quickly turned around and met Mercury before the assassin could jump in to attack his flank. The sound of clashing metal rang out through the camp as Mercury's boots and legs bounced back from the red blade. Adam kept knocking the boy's feet back with his sword, but found himself stuck before he could move another swing. Looking back, he saw Emerald had circled her chains around his blade to stop it moving. She gave a hard yank and nearly pulled the red blade out of his hand as Mercury spun around and landed an axe kick on the crown of his head. Adam snarled and raised his foot high in the air. He bounded down sharply on the chains with such force and intensity that Emerald was pulled off her feet. She stumbled and quickly regained her balance, but in that short instant, Adam dashed over to her and kicked her in the chest hard enough to send her flying back. Adam yanked his sword free of the chains before turning on Mercury. The kicker quickly recoiled and tried to step back as the swordsman charged his way. Mercury met him with a flurry of sharp kicks, keeping the boy at bay as he deflected them with the flat of his sword. Danzo had taught him through years of training the different ways and benefits of people's fighting styles. Slammers always had room to kill you from afar, and if they were doing it right, you'd be dead before you noticed them. Swordsmen could shred you to pieces before you even realized it. Brawlers could break the bodies with precise, powerful punches, and kickers had greater range to their attacks than most, and the power behind them was staggering. But for each strength, there was a weakness. If you could hide from side and force them to move, snipers could be left open for attack. Take a swordsman's blade from them, and they were practically beaten already. A fist could break down the body, but an arm could be broken or skewered in ways that left it useless. And even though kickers and even those kicks were more powerful, the proper form and stance to get that power was difficult if you were pressed. Adam blocked the kicker's strikes with his sword while pushing forward and close in the distance. Mercury refused to let up in the hopes that one of his kicks would slip through and crack the cocky prick's mask. And while the assassin kept kicking, he kept twisting his legs and hips in order to get as much power in them as possible. When Mercury switched feet and raised his leg to attack again, Adam stepped into his guard. He pressed the muzzle of his shotgun against the man's chest. Mercury was sent flying and crashing into the dirt as he clutched his chest in pain. Adam slowly stood back up and walked over to the groaning young man, swishing his blade out to the side before swinging it in his hand so that he could stab the downed assassin. Before Adam could make the killing blow, everything around him turned to black. The fire's campfire, orange sky, and red trees that surrounded him were suddenly gone and replaced with never-ending black. He had left the red fawn cautious and looking around frantically. One moment he was about to make the finishing strike, and the next everything had vanished. Was it the boy's semblance? Had he activated in a panic to avoid getting skewered? Or perhaps it was the work of that woman or the girl? Whatever the case, Adam's instincts were screaming at him to escape and regain control. With a calming breath, Adam raised his sword and sheathed it back into its scabbard. Once he did that, he slowly lowered his stance and let out a long exhale that drew all air from his body. Power welled up in every cell. His senses were overflowing, and his grip tightened around his sword. A glow started to appear in his hair as he took his stance. And just to be safe, he slashed the ground, and not just around him. The illusion faded, and Emerald was knocked off her feet by the immense, powerful shockwave released by Adam's swing. And she was sent tumbling over the dirt and ground before she stopped and groaned. With the panicked kiss, she lifted herself up and paused in shock at the sight of the deep crescent furrow his slasher had left in the ground, Emerald looked up and stared at the man whose body slowly lost its glow as he sheathed his sword. The red-haired faunus looked back at Mercury, groaned, and lifted him up before hesitating when he noticed Adam's gaze. The swordsman slowly drew his sword back out. Enough! A massive explosion of fire and wind blew up at Adam's side, sending his sword flying through the air, and the faunus sailed back through his camp. He bodily crashed into the ground and immediately picked himself up, only to see his sword reach its apex and drop back down from the sky. It landed in Cinder's hand, and she let it to rest on her shoulder as she stepped forward. Her servants quickly picked themselves up as the raven-haired woman lowered his sword and pointed its tip at his face. I don't enjoy repeating myself. I find it a waste of time, and I believe it unnecessary because I'm sure you remember what I said. I can do this without your assistance, but it would be a much simpler affair if we had each other's backs. And Cinder flipped the sword and caught the blade with her finger, offering him back the hilt of his weapon. Adam eyed the woman's hands cautiously and followed it up to her devilish smile, slowly reaching up and taking his sword back. He stood up to his full height. Emerald and Mercury subtly reacted in case he made a move. Cinder raised her hand and stopped him from doing anything, her smile becoming more pronounced as he sheathed his sword and addressed her unarmed. She nodded him. And I promise you and your kind will benefit greatly from my joint efforts. Hunting, you would actually make a move against the schools. That's right. Emerald nodded across from Adam as they sat alone in the tent, smiling with unprecedented confidence for a topic that seemed so ludicrous. What we are aiming for requires the schools to be systematically broken down from all sides, figuratively in the eyes of the masses and population, and literally for more personal reasons. Adam held no love for the academies that raised huntsmen and huntresses. He understood the purpose in the eyes of the general public as a shield, the barrier against the grim that produced huntsmen and huntresses every year in order to protect them. It sounded like a perfect plan, but it was far from the ideal as many people found out the hard way. Those capable huntsmen and huntresses were never as altruistic as people hoped. Since there were still people in the end, they would sell their skill and services at a profit, and thus would only work in the most lucrative environments. There were countless accounts of settlements, towns, villages, and homes falling to ruin because they didn't have enough money to pay for help, which left most faunus settlements and homes with no hope or alternative. Even the faunus who did make it into the schools and graduate in the end, surviving whatever prejudice and bigotry they met in the walls, came up with little desire to help their brothers and sisters. The schools had been built to assure peace and save people around the world, but Grim still attacked those unable to afford the help. Those that emerged had little desire to engage in heroics, and if it helped them prosper, like Atlas did with the help of the Shni Dust Company, and then they were willing to turn a blind eye to any injustices or evil that could occur right under their noses. The schools prompted a wish to ensure peace and stability, but in truth they perpetuated a stagnant and unchanging status quo around the world. Do you really plan to bring them toppling down? You know what would happen if they were to fall, right? I am very much aware of what happens if those schools disappear. Cindy looked up at Adam, tilting her head curiously as one of her silky locks fell in front of her eyes. Does that mean you believe we won't survive without the aid schools like Atlas and others offer us? Not at all. I know we can survive without them. The skills and education offered by the schools were top-notch, but it was still possible to reach powers like that outside of those walls. Many people around the world train themselves, practice with weapons, and hone their talents in order to fight. Maybe not to the same level as trained huntsmen, but at least strong enough to handle a wayward grim or a stray bandit that crossed their path. Dancer had spent many years training himself in order to fight those that he believed that he needed to kill, and when he reached an age where his body could no longer keep up, he instead passed that training and skill onto Adam. Adam shook his head decisively. We don't need the schools in order to protect ourselves. The shock of them crashing down will leave people reeling, and the Grim will take advantage of that panic to swarm in. But once that is done, they'll learn to survive. The population survived long before the schools and huntsmen took over. It can do so again. Cinder smiled, pleased to hear him support her stance that the schools the schools disappearing wouldn't end the world. But there are points and positions that have been brought up at countless meetings and on any internet forum with free thinkers. Yes, and there have been attempts to attack the schools before, or even make them redundant. They've all failed. I'm well aware of this, Cinder said softly as Adam stood out of his seat and walked around the tent. I know it might just sound like a lofty goal when I say it here, but I fully plan to tear the schools down, and were you to help me, the recognition the White Fang would get in bringing those schools down would be enormous. Or you could simply use the White Fang as a scapegoat to shirk all blame and attention. Yes, I could hire some people and have them wear masks if I was so inclined to blame someone for this. But I'm doing this with the intent of giving you and your people the credit for the work, not just to take the blame. In fact, if I have my way, the fools will be pointing at each other and blaming themselves more than any. Adam eyed the woman carefully as she smiled. He could tell with just a single look that she had the image of what she wanted playing in her head right now. To have already been able to visualize her desire so clearly meant she had a frightened imagination. Hypothetically, and only hypothetically, how would you be going about attacking the schools? Atlas is stronger and more fortified than any castle. No, not Atlas. She firmly interrupted before he could continue. We can't start attacking a Titan with all the hunters, military, and students located in one place. It would be impossible. Cinder crossed her legs and thought deeply. If shade were to fall, there would be fear, but ultimately it would be pointless. No one says it, but it's a rather obvious truth that most people are just waiting for the day Vacuo collapses in on itself. Then what about Mistral? Adam offered. The main White Fang forces resides there, without Hand Leader to lead us when necessary. Mistral would be easy. Too easy, she spoke as if she knew something important she wasn't willing to indulge. We would take it down the fastest, but that would leave the other schools ready to act. No, if we make an attack, it has to be devastating. It has to leave a scar and send the other schools into a panic. And that means... The first target is Beacon. Cinder's eyes smoldered and she smiled. And so what do you say? I don't say anything. This whole matter has only been conjecture, and a wild one at that. Adam lifted the flap of his tent and looked outside. His surviving followers were picking up the pieces to move again, all while watching the two humans that sat just outside his tent. Even if I were to agree to whatever plan you haven't properly cooked up yet, I'm not the one in charge of my people. Then who might I ask? Sienna Khan leads us as the High Leader of the White Fang, but in the Veil Cell, we're led by my superior, Danzo Shimura. Adam looked back at the woman. You've yet to fully convince me to your plan, which means he'll turn you down immediately. It'd be much simpler if your fondness coming to him with this plan. But even then, I doubt he'd be willing to hear you out. Mysterious, cautious, and someone to demand even your loyalty. Cinder hummed. I'm sure under any other circumstances we get along swimmingly. Honestly, the idea that they could work so well under any circumstances sent a chill up Adam's spine. Hunting, he wasn't surprised to hear dissent in arguments from his people when he told them that they were going to guide a group of humans back to their base of operations, especially after Cinder had re-entered their camp unannounced and attacked several of them. When they tried to retaliate and attack her and her people, Adam had to step in and order them not to strike them down or for any reason. After that, there had been whispers that he had turned traitor for siding with a human like this, but they just didn't understand what he had saved them from. Cinder had made it clear that neither she nor her lackeys would hurt his people as long as he worked with them. But if they made a move to attack them, she would have no choice but to protect herself. He knew this was a lie because with the power she wielded, she could protect herself and her people with little effort. So the point was clear: make these discussions work, or she would kill them all. The guards called out for them to stop, and Adam gave them the clear to let them through. They hesitated when they saw the humans accompanying them, but stepped aside to allow them entry. As they cut a line through the other members and tends towards the center, Adam's eyes carefully panned to see those around him. They all looked confused or shocked by the people he was leading towards their leader, but nowhere in those crowds did he see long black hair or feline ears. He wasn't actually expecting her to have come back here, but he'd be lying if he said there wasn't a part of him deep down that was disappointed that she didn't. As they approached the large tent in the center of the camp, Adam and the others spotted the man that led their group in battle. The tall, wrinkled old man had taken off his grim mask to reveal the single tired eye he still possessed that had little color or life still in it. His right arm was covered in bandages to hide the myriads of scars and lacerations it had received over his many years of fighting humans, and all the White Fang members that were reporting to him were wary and careful not to cross him. Adam also couldn't help but notice that he didn't have cushion by his side like he usually did. Lanzo looked up and noticed their approach, only for his eyes to narrow immediately on the humans. He stepped up to greet them, stopping as Adam and his subordinates came to a halt and saluted him. "I heard about the train job. It's all over the news, and the SDC is furiously scrambling to save face." The old weasel nodded. "You did a good job out there." "Thank you, sir," Adam nodded. "I expected nothing less from you." However, Danzo leaned, stared at the dark-haired woman watching him, the green-haired girl who hovered over her weapon, and the curious young man looking around at his new surroundings. "Who are these people you brought in? Employees of the train you captured? Huntsmen the SDC hired?" "No, sir. They're not SDC employees or hunters." Adam dropped out of his salute as Danzo looked at him blankly, not letting any emotion come to his face, even as the bull recognized the confusion at their guest. These are humans who entered our camp before we started the train job, and then after we returned. They approached your camp twice." Danzo questioned. The surrounding White Fang members had gathered and were watching the group curiously as the leader asked the question they all had. "So why are they still alive and here in our base of operations instead of feeding a group of Grimm in the forest?" "I brought them here to speak with you, sir. They have a proposition they want you to hear." The response wasn't explosive or animated like he expected, but instead just quiet whispers and altered gazes from all sides. Danzo's expression did not change at all, but his eyes refused to move from the slits in Adam's mask. After a few minutes of the crowd speaking up and voicing their opposition, Danzo raised his hand and silenced them all. The weasel stared at his disciples silently before finally speaking. "And what would possess you to believe that bringing them here to this place was a good idea? I told you they have an offer that could help our cause. If they infiltrated your camp not once but twice, you should have killed them on the spot. No questions, no talking, no negotiations. They're stronger than they look. We wouldn't have even been able to do anything. If we tried to fight, we would have died. Then you would die, and you wouldn't bring powerful outsiders to us." Danzo's callous reply sent some of the other members in earshot in shock, but not Adam. He didn't expect anything less of the cold, heartless bastard he had known for most of his life. "I believe he did it for your benefit and the benefit of the faunus around the world." Danzo and Adam looked back at Cinder as she stepped forward and spoke up to them, while those watching were wary about this woman. They didn't know whether to be impressed at her nerves of steel or horrified at her ignorance of her ignorance of the tension between the two men. "I can understand that you would be apprehensive of working together with someone strange, especially with humans. But this deal I'm offering really will be a boon for your cause, the White Fang, and the faunus around Remnant in general." Danzo watched the woman carefully before he grabbed Adam's shoulder and dragged him away from everyone else. Once they had retreated to his tent, Danzo looked at his student critically. "Who is that woman?" "Cinderfall. I'm not sure if that's her real name or an alias, but we haven't been able to scrounge anything up in our searches. Why did she come to your camp in the first place? She came to propose a deal. She wishes for the White Fang to help her plan an attack on the schools. She understands what our goal is, correct, and that we aren't here to serve some poor common criminals and grind this side of chaos. I told her and sent her away with her life as a warning. That was your first mistake. Show mercy to humans, and they'll only ever consider it weakness. I've told you that." Adam bit back the growl he wanted to release. When she came back, she insisted I listen to her pitch, and she was very persuasive. I noticed there are less of you returning than they were going out. Should I assume that was part of her persuasion?" He didn't answer. That disappoints me even more. "And what about your apprentice? Did she take her life as well?" "No, she..." The bull paused, hand tightening slightly around his weapon. "She abandoned us on the mission. We couldn't find her afterwards, and she hasn't returned, so it's to be assumed she's turned traitor. And like that, all hope that this would all be some silly joke disappeared when he said those words. I should have expected nothing less from that girl. girl. She always did voice her displeasure or opinions about how we conducted our missions. She was just like Hiruzen, weak in heart and unable to see anything through. Danzo spoke derisively. It's a damn shame she left now, which means that we have little leeway against the belladonnas in Menagerie. And there he went again, treating his apprentice and friend like she was only ever a bargaining chip against the chieftain of the island. I told you it would have been in our best interest if you had taken the time to program the girl and teach her how to act, or better yet, you could have left her to me, and I would have made sure she could never disobey us again. He wanted to use the methods and skills he had gained from a lifetime of training to twist her into a puppet that followed her every word. He wanted to make Belladonna just like him and Kushna. So this apparent success with the train turns out to carry more unpleasant unpleasant addendums. The weasel found his side and looked back at the group of humans casually standing in the camp. We need to kill them. You can't, not without risking a serious retaliation against our followers. If our people die because of the woman you brought in, Adam, that's on your shoulders, not mine. Danzo whispered. All these years I've been training you and watching you grow, and yet I still need to pick up after you when you make childish mistakes. Adam pushed her down his anger and implored his mentor. Sir, I just need you to listen to what she says, just for a little bit. It's a grand scheme, but if it works, we could change the viewpoints of honest forever. I will not, please. He grabbed Danzo's arm and squeezed it. As your loyal subject, as your servant and bodyguard, as your son, I beg you to at least listen to her. Haven't I earned at least that from you after all these years? Danzo did not take much stock in sentimentality, considering things like using relationship or bonds to sway choices or choices as emotional manipulation. And the only reason he didn't like that is because he preferred to be the one manipulating others instead of the other way around. Adam knew that and could see the quiet anger bubbling under the surface, but he was desperate not to enrage the woman who wielded such power, and did not want his mentor to do anything reckless just yet. After a few moments of pregnant silence, Danzo pulled Adam's hands off his arm and nodded. Very well. I shall give this woman the time to explain whatever wild fantasy she has you so convinced in. But while I'm listening to her, you will not be attending. I won't have you whispering in my ear that she should be trusted or followed. I understand, but please do not attack her or her people until you have finished listening to her. He wanted to explain to the old faunus the strange power she wielded, but he doubted Danzo would hear him out properly in the mood he was in. If any harm comes to them while they're here, she said we would pay. Another reason her presence here angers me. Adam closed his mouth and let Danzo walk to the entrance of the tent before he stopped. Adam, while I'm dealing with our guest, can you go retrieve Kushna? It's been some time, and I'd be late to end her training otherwise. Can I trust you to do that? He nodded dutifully and waited until Danzo left before he let any reaction show. He gripped his weapon a little tighter to alleviate his frustration before he let it wash over him like a breeze. The young Faunus leader reached over and grabbed a canteen of water, knowing that Kushna was going to need it before he made his way out and to his next destination. But the moment he wasn't flanked by his entourage and guests, was the opportunity his stalker took to approach him. Who are those people? Humans. Once we met while out on our mission, they wished to speak with us and barter our partnership. I'm guessing Danzo didn't take that very well. No, he did not. Do you think he's actually going to take a deal any human offers us? I doubt that there's anyone in the world that can convince him to change his mind. Once he's done negotiating with her and denies her offer, he'll come to me to re-engage my conditioning. That is, if Cinder didn't end up killing them all. What? I mean, don't you think that's a little harsh? I'm sure you brought humans here, but you must have had a reason. I did something he didn't think I would do. That's more than enough reason for him to do what he thinks is necessary. I'm sorry. It was unsettling to think he would hear genuine sympathy and regret from her, of all people. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. I've survived most of my life. This won't be any different. If you say so, she whispered softly. Before she went quiet, he could feel her turn and look around before she spoke again. Where's Blake? She's gone. The footsteps behind him stopped before a moment at the inevitable shock. He hit her like it had hit him. Oh, what? After a moment of function, had returned to her body, and she ran up to his side. What do you mean she's gone? Did she? She abandoned me on the train. I was left to fend for myself against approaching robots and authorities. She has abandoned us. Her hair billowed in the wild as she sadly looked over at him. Her figure disappeared down the tracks. If she wouldn't do that, she did. There has to be a reason. Did you say something to her? Do something to her? I swear, if you hurt her, I did no such thing. She was there by my side, and then she left me for dead. That's it. That can't be it. It's over. She wouldn't just leave us. Leave me. She's gone now. Why would she leave? I don't know. That's not good enough. Ilium. His booming roar silenced her and everything else around them. Adam stared down at the chameleon girl as she looked up at him in shock. Her skin was a multitude of clashing colors and tones before they all faded away, leaving her a dull gray body, and tears had already started to run down the side of her face as she lost control of herself. His hand was squeezing his sword as tightly as possible, and his other hand had left imprints in the canteen he was holding. He wished he could show it all. He wished she could show it all as well as she did. Shaking his head, he walked by the stunned, silent young girl as she dropped to her knees. She's gone, and she's left us here to toil by ourselves. Hunting. After Elia had finally left him alone, he arrived at the tent on the edge of their camp. From out here, he could see the multiple flashing colors on the top of the tent, and the dull sounds emanating from inside. With a deep breath, he walked over and pulled the flap open. Doing so, let spare light peek into the dark tent. The blinding, flashing lights flickering at random intensity, and intervals were leaving him disoriented and nauseous. Along with the speakers positioned very closely for released in booming tones and dull lows. It would be enough to leave anyone reeling and momentarily stunned. To say nothing of the fox woman secure to poor in the middle of the tent that had suffered the treatment for who knows how long. Krishna's eyes were hollow, and she didn't even respond when Adam entered the tent. The sensory deprivation and overload had taken its toll and had left the woman an empty husk. He remembered suffering this same treatment at Danzo's hands when he was younger, but when it happened to him, it was part of his training to withstand interrogations and survive extreme conditions. This wasn't the case for Kushina, though. This was part of her punishment for allowing her traitor son to escape. Adam turned off the flashing lights and disabled the speakers. Once they were off, Kushina had stirred and started to recover from her treatment. As he walked over and started to undo her restraints, he heard her hoarse voice whisper, "How long was it this time? I don't know. I've only just returned." Once she was freed, he handed her the partially broken canteen of water. She snatched it out of his hands and up in her mouth, guzzling it down as quickly as she could. Slowly, don't drink it all at once. If you do, the result was immediate as the water came rushing back out her mouth. Krishna turned and gagged, throwing up water and bile as her nausea hadn't yet subsided enough for her to drink. She retched and coughed hard enough to tear her throat as she desperately tried to catch her breath. Once her gagging had come to an end, she wiped the tears from her eyes and looked up in time to see the grim mask Adam offering her hand. "Get out of my face! You know he wants you to wear this when you're out with others. I don't care." She panted. He won't make me his puppet right after he's done torturing me. He wants you to convey an image of strength and solidarity. If you won't do that, then he'll just keep sticking you in here until you finally break. Krishna caught her breath and looked between the mask and him. She harshly snatched it out of his hand. Anything like when he broke you and made you his pet. You can imagine it was much the same thing you're experiencing now. Defeated, Adam didn't even try to argue against her sharp barb. He reached down and took one of her arms and wrapped around his shoulder as he stood up. You think we'd show a little more compassion to each other, considering we're practically siblings? Krishna pulled herself out of Adam's grip, stumbling to the ground, but glaring through her mask. Don't you dare say that. We are not family. We are not siblings. And that monster is in no way a father. We're not his children. We're his living tools. And if that's my life, then I want it in no way associated with you. Your tenacity is astonishing. But you're stuck with us, and there's no reason to fight that. The two red-haired children of Danzo stared each other down before Kushner sat in the grass and caught her breath. Adam stepped aside and trying to regain some composure by walking around, but making sure to stay close to Kushner in case she did anything. You're determined to be this obstinate forever, aren't you? Until the day I die, Kushner groaned. And as long as I know my son is away from this, I can withstand whatever Danzo thinks he can do to me. You shouldn't test him on that. We both know that man's imagination is limitless when it comes to matters like this. Listen to yourself. Krishna's words were soaked in spite and disgust towards the masked swordsman. You speak like the bastard, some kind of boogeyman, some untouchable shadow. He might be a monster, but he's still a man. He can still be hurt. Be killed. That might be sooner than we think. With those words, Krishna looked up at Adam. I brought a group of humans to the camp that wish to bargain with us. I doubt Danzo's actually going to agree to their terms, but if he attacks them, then they will fight. And if they do, then we won't stand a chance. How many? 3. No one person is strong enough to do that, and I doubt even a small group like that could pose a threat. They probably have allies outside that will attack. Adam shook his head. No, it's her strength. I've seen it for myself. That she's going to attack. Danzo will try and kill her. It's what he wants. She has an offer that could help us, but she's human, and Danzo hates humans. He'll kill her for that reason alone. You know this, so why? Krishna paused for something clicked. Oh, you wanted that, don't you? You know she'll kill him, and I bet you're hoping for that. No, I'm hoping that he sees reason. Then either you're deluding yourself, or you don't know the man who raised you for years. I just need him to understand what she's saying. I need him to consider how much this will help us. Adam paced around before looking down at the fox. I need your help. If you and I can convince him to work alongside Cinder. No, he wasn't surprised by her answer, but by how quickly she gave it. You don't understand. It won't just be Danzo. It'll be everyone she kills. That gets in the way. We can't. I won't help you. He could see. He could. How could she be so ignorant and inflexible at a time like this? Adam seized her through gritted teeth before he knelt down and grabbed her arm. Do you understand what is going to happen? Our brothers and sisters are going to die, and they're going to pay for a mistake I made. And one Danzo will be too stubborn to diffuse, and you would see that all happen even when you have a chance to fix it. Yes, I would. She growled as she turned to him and grabbed the hand off of her arm. What about this? Do you not understand? I hate you. I hate Danzo. I hate everything you are and everything you are trying to do. If I could spend my life making yours and his more miserable than I would, and if my silence can hurt you both, then I don't care who else gets dragged into it. She pulled him down so they were face to face, their masks nearly touching. I can die happy knowing you'll both die too. It was just spite and hatred that drove her choice now. She would die and cast them all to the same fate, just as revenge against Danzo and himself. There was nothing else in her life but what she had to go through now. So if it was between that or death to her tormentors as well, what other choice did she have? The one he could offer her. Don't you want to be reunited with your son and lover? She stayed silent before snarling at him. Don't you bring them up? Don't you use them against me like that? I understand if this is all your life is right now, then dragging everyone with you would be the most preferred option. But what if it wasn't the only option? What if you could go back to your home? Adam inquired. To your home where your son has returned and your lover waits for you every day. Wouldn't that be something you would want to see? Stop doing that. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you don't yearn to see them again. Krishna's body flared as her body was wreathed in red aura, and her features disappeared. Adam did not waver and stared her down, even as she stood over him, ready to attack. You can go back to your family. You can leave, and you can join them. I can't. Krishna's voice filtered through her aura. Danzo would never let me leave. You can if he didn't have a choice in the matter. hunting. When Adam returned to the center of the camp, it was to see that Cinda and her cronies had made themselves more comfortable. They were still surrounded by White Fang members stationed to keep an eye on them, but now they were more laid back and accepting of the surveillance. As Adam approached and made his way over, Cinda greeted him. "Glad to see you're back. Is that a friend of yours?" She was looking over his shoulder at the red-haired woman with the foxtail standing by. Friend wouldn't be appropriate. We've experienced similar horrors. Worse than the usual crap you guys use as dogma to stir things up. The cold glare Mercury got in response had the boy sighing. "Damn, no life in this conversation. Speaking of conversation, how did yours go with Danzo? I'm sure I don't need to tell you. A failure without any cooperation. And what did he have to say about your plan? He did show interest in the idea of the schools being attacked, but after that he continued to insist that I explain every meticulous detail. My partnership, how I came to this decision to act, and why I wanted the White Fang's help. I can understand the cautiousness, but when there were questions I couldn't divulge the answers to, he only seemed to only stick to them. He also said that a plan only halfway completed is not a plan to risk your life for, which can I agree. But when I'm not sure if I'll have a large fighting force to join us, it's hard to have any finality to a plan. So now we're here." Emerald said as she looked around, "and I think we can all agree we're just waiting for the shoe to drop. Now that would be unfortunate," Cinder said smugly with a light and joyful chuckle before looking up at Adam. "What do you think? Do you think we'll be able to settle things peacefully, or will we come to blows?" "How did you change?" She tilted her head to his question. "When you first came to me, you were patient, careful, and methodical with how you spoke, and now you just push through without hesitation or guard. It can't just be this power you acquired, is it? What else changed?" Cinder thought deeply about what he asked before she shrugged. "I finally felt complete." She could see even the mask on. He was confused by her question, by her answer. "My entire life, I've strived for power, not just skills, not just strength, actual power that makes me feel like I'm something more. I thought I would have a look for it forever, but I found it. But just part of it. It was taken from me, but I could have it all. Now I only have half of it, but I have this power, and I know that I'll be taking the other half soon enough." She looked up at the masked swordsman with a coy smile. "I only got what I wanted. Why would I let anything else stand in my way after that?" "Adam," the Wolfonish turned around as Danzo emerged from his tent. The man stood forward with purpose, a dark look in his eye, and a scratched up metallic cane in his hand. "Speaking with your friends again, are you? Danzo, listen up, all of you," he exclaimed and demanded the attention of everyone. The Wolfonish stepped forward and passed by Adam to stare down at the humans swatting in his camp. "These humans approached our camp today with an offer to work alongside them to see their aspiring fulfillment. They said if we were to work together, the White Fang would see great triumph and victory. A plan to attack humans in a way that turns and shifts the perception of us completely on its head." A crowd had already gathered to hear Danzo's speech. In it, Adam could see his lieutenant and Ilya watching in the group, with even Kushna coming up to listen. But we all know that's a lie," Danzo turned. "How many times have we been told by humans that this will be a change for us, an opportunity to make things better for ourselves? And in the end, it was all just lies to use us." The crowd spoke up in agreement. "How many times has an olive branch been offered to us, and in the end, we're met with a whip or a switch? Why would this be any different?" The crowd started to yell and roar. Emerald and Mercury tried to remain cool, but it still looked tense. Only Cinder watched with amusement as the people turned on her. "They think us expendable. They think of us as tools to be used for their benefit. Or will we stand for that? No. Will we just let them walk away so that they may return to whoever sent them here and bring retribution upon us? No." The crowd grew restless, some reaching for weapons or anything they do anything to wield. And Mercury grew anxious as Cinder stood up to face Danzo. "We will not let your lies and deceit twist us." The old leader raised his cane and leveled it at Cinder. "Nothing will ever change like this." Danzo made his move, Cinder letting flames come to his hand. That's a lie! The crowd went silent. Cinder raised an elegant eyebrow, and Danzo still waiting silently before turning around. Things have changed, we all know it. We can see how our work and efforts have affected the world. Adam turned to his subordinate and comrades. Not long ago, people sneered at us and turned their noses up in derision. Now they know better and shy away from us in the streets. They know what will happen if they don't respect the faunus. This is progress, and if that's not what we have been driving towards, I don't know what is. We have come so far because of what we've done and what we were willing to sacrifice. Sometimes it was easy, sometimes it was hard. Sometimes we lost the brothers and sisters that stood by our sides, but we're still here trying to make a difference, and that's what these humans are here to offer us, a difference. I'm not asking you to trust them. I don't, nor will I ever truly trust any human again, but they do offer us a chance to do something that will change how faunus are looked at forever. I move against the schools. The reaction across the crowd was mixed and hesitant. Danzo just stared at him in disappointment as Cinder listened. I know you're thinking that doing something like that would doom us, but we know that isn't true. We've fight the grim without the help of huntsmen and huntresses. We've defended for ourselves countless times before. The faunus are hardy and strong people, stronger and more capable than humans are. If those humans fall, we will adapt and survive while the humans fall back and cower in their homes. They'll know once and for all that they can't just write us off as some subspecies. They'll see just what we're capable of when the chips are down. I know it'll be scary, but trust in me, I will do what I have to do to protect you. The crowd was silent as they watched him. He wasn't sure if it was admiration or disbelief, but their attention was on him and him alone. I'm disappointed in you, Adam. He clenched his teeth as Danzo stalked over towards him. His silence more than conveying his intent. You've let your fear of humans and their words cloud your judgment. I raised you to be a warrior that could stand up for faunus everywhere, and now you're here, cowering before these three defenseless humans who offer us nothing. I expect more from you. You've only ever expected complacency. Danzo's eyes widened and many gathered gasped. The usually silent third leader of the group stepped forward, many hearing her speak for the first time. Danzo doesn't want to take chances. He doesn't care for risk. He only cares about what he can control and how he can make things work for him. And doing that means he doesn't want things to change for the White Fang or for us to make any big plays. She looked around at the crowd. He found more people like me, more noble guards who could join who join and fight for the cause, but he refuses to reach them because he doesn't have his grimy little mitts around their necks to control them like he does me. It's why we don't stay in regular contact with the other sections of the White Fang. Why the Veil chapter is considered almost separate. Why he makes Adam his representative to keep regular contact with Sienna Khan. He doesn't want her coming in and taking his power away. This isn't his solemn duty for the sake of faunus everywhere, where his pawns and tools to stretch his influence as far as possible. At least Adam cares for the cause. He wants to see us succeed. This offer from the human might be dangerous, but it'll change things for us. But if we stay with Danzo, we'll just be meandering away for this old fool. Danzo stared at his traitor subordinates as the other members of the White Fang started to whisper between each other. He could hear every doubt and hesitation they tried to hide from him, and all because of the people he had spent his life grooming to follow his leader. He whispered, "Is this really what you want to do?" He sighed. Very well. Danzo lunged forward, his cane scraping against the hilt of Adam's sword. The bull faunus tried to draw his blade, but the tip of his mentor's cane continued to flash forward at speeds that he could only deal with on reflex. The crowd backed away, and Kushner retreated as Danzo had attacked with more speed and ferocity than anyone expected of a man his age. Adam had to protect himself from a man that had spent his life fighting against huntsmen and huntresses that had tried to stop him countless times before. Adam couldn't even properly draw his sword, and he realized that Danzo was taking advantage of that to make sure he couldn't use his semblance. Whether this would end in a skirmish or something more final, he wasn't going to make any progress like this. Danzo's cane came down and snapped Adam's head aside, but in that moment the bull drew his sword and forced the weasel back. The old faunus leapt back and found his footing as Adam gripped his blade, glaring at Danzo directly now that his mask had been knocked to the ground. Look at you! You had more reason and cause to hate humans than anyone. That's why I reached out to you. I could see we were kindred spirits, and I wanted to let your potential grow. But now you're squandering your potential and future for nothing. You don't see a future in anyone, Adam spat. You see objects you can exploit. I know this is the right decision, and if you know what's best, you'll stand down now. The two men stood across from each other in heavy silence before Danzo sighed. I can't believe this happened. I'm not sure if my reconditioning can even help you at this point. His eyes hardened, but I'm willing to try. When Adam realized what he was going to do, he dashed forward to stop him, but it was too late as Danzo's fingers hovered over his cane and started to blur. He grabbed a metal cane as the sound was scraping and cutting slashes against the metal. Every one person covered their ears from the horrible sound. It was even worse for the faunas with sensitive hearing, but it hit two people harder than any other. Adam's body stilled and tensed against his will as the familiar sound of Danzo's semblance against metal creeping into his mind. The conditioning response from years of training had caused him to waver at such an important moment. In the corner of his eye, he could see Krishna having a similar response as she hugged herself and cowered. The sound stopped, but Danzo's cane swung down on him, hitting him across the jaw and cheeks and crown mercilessly. Adam tried to retaliate, but Danzo scratched his cane again and started the whole thing over. This cycle repeated for nearly 10 minutes as everyone present witnessed the lynching of their superior officer at the hand of their leader. Have you learned your lesson? Adam dropped to his knees and coughed as he spat of blood and saliva pulling in his mouth. You were gifted, Adam, but you were always stubborn and unwilling to follow. I thought I had finally removed all that insubordination from you after all these years. But I suppose I was deluding myself. Don't worry, I'm willing to try again for my son. Adam grabbed his sheath and turned it on Danzo and aimed the shotgun at the old man. The red-haired man was panting softly to try and catch his breath as the elderly man just looked unfazed by the threat. With a shake of his head, he reached down to scratch his cane, but paused when Adam turned the gun on himself. The first shot next to his ear hurt like hell and left him screaming in pain. But he pushed through the pain, cocked the gun again, and fired next to his other ear. Well, once it was done, he was deafened. The painful ring in his ears so sharp it felt like it was breaking his skull. The sensations were pure agony, and the look on Danzo's face when he realized he couldn't affect him anymore was worth it. The old man panicked and swung his cane down to strike him again, but Adam slid aside the ring, deafening him and leaving him with only the sound of his own beating heart. It hastened and beat louder and louder as he swung his sword up, and everything went silent as his sword sliced through the cane and struck Danzo in the chest. The elderly man was bodily knocked to the ground with a gasp as the pieces of his cane dropped to the ground. Once Danzo was floored and struggled for air, Adam caught his breath as he felt energy surge with him. He looked around and saw the crowd looking at them in shock. Now he had their attention, and so he got what he wanted. Now he had to. His eyes lighted on Cinder as she looked down at the beaten old man and then back at him. He got what he wanted. Danzo coughed and gagged, clutching his chest after the powerful attacker had knocked the wind out of him. He groaned and tried to lift himself up, but paused when he felt something touch his neck. Everyone around him went deathly silent as the thing on his neck pushed down a little more before lifting up. Slowly Danzo turned his head and looked up at the glowing figure of his apprentice, raising his sword over his head. His eyes stared at him lifelessly, one still a shiny blue and the other a burned mess from the brand over it. Adam slowly raised his sword high until he stopped him. Huh. Danzo could only let a scoff and shake his head. You're right, Hiruzen. I couldn't stop the next revolution that came my way. With a deep breath, he looked up at his young apprentice once more and whispered, "This is what you truly want. Then make sure to take hold of it and never let go." Adam's sword swung down ruthlessly and separated head from body. Both toppled to the ground lifelessly as the crowd was breathless to the brutal display. Everyone looked between the body of their former leader and the sword of their new one, hoping that somehow someone would reveal that this was all just for show. But only one person laughed. Laughed a joyless, empty laugh. Krishna stared at Danzo's head as it settled on the ground and felt her body swell with emotion. She covered her mouth as a sob and laugh nearly slipped out. As one, while tears streamed down her face, she dropped to her knees and heaved as she tried to catch her breath. Adam slashed his sword aside and cleaned it off blood. His ears were still ringing, so he couldn't hear what Danzo said at the end. It didn't matter. Nothing he did ever really truly mattered. Hunting, it was a few hours until the ringing in his ears subsided enough that he could hear people again. It still gave him a splitting headache, and he was sure he wasn't going to sleep properly tonight. But he had done what he needed to do, and it was a relief to be done with it now. With a new mask on his face and his old mentor's body being carried away, Adam slipped into the tent in time to see his partner in crime packing her things. As he didn't waste any time, Krishna looked jumpy, but the smile on her face was the first genuine one, and she had one in years. While she would have never actually greeted the bull fondness before, she couldn't contain her excitement as her tail wagged behind her. Hey, how you feeling? Ears still killing you? They hurt like hell, but I can hear again at least. Adam leaned against the desk and watched her move around the tent. What about you? I just can't believe it. He's gone. He's finally gone. For someone for someone so substantial in her life, she sounded giddy at the fact he was dead. Although he couldn't exactly blame her, considering he also felt a sense of relief at finally being freed from his influence. I honestly never thought I'd live to see the day. I honestly believed the world will end up outliving us and just keep ruining the world. She grabbed some of her clothes and started to collect them together. He can't reach us anymore. Yes, I know. Adam nodded. What do you think will happen now? I don't know. Krishna paused, the adrenaline of the moment draining away for a moment as she shook her head. Now that Danzo's gone, they'll be looking to you. Krishna turned and faced Adam. You're going to be leading your people now. I hope you do better than he did. I hope so too. I never thought I would say this, but thank you, Adam. She turned to the bull and grabbed his hand, squeezing it between both hers, and her gratitude was clear in her voice. You did what no one else could. You will always have my thanks. If that's true, then I could use your help. You usurping control of an entire chapter of the White Fang through execution isn't going to look well for me. You can get help from the other noble guards Danzo found. That'll definitely bolster your standing. Krishna stated as she grabbed her bag. Use those people to establish order and rally on them, rally them together. They can be more effective than just some figurehead like me. I need you here, Krishna. The fox woman's tail stopped wagging and slowly lowered back by her legs. She dropped her bag and turned on Adam, staring at him quietly. Nose down passed between them for several seconds as Krishna realized he was actually asking her. You said if we took control from Danzo, then you could handle everything. You could settle things more easily, and you wouldn't need to use me as some puppet to drum up followers or a figure to put blame on for the public. You don't need me anymore. That's before things escalated. I planned for a change of power. That ended with one of us dead. That's on you. Don't drag me back into this because you couldn't help yourself from killing him. I made a mistake, but you stepped forward and convinced our people to take my side. I spoke my mind. I finally told Danzo off and how he shouldn't get what he wants anymore. I did it for my benefit, not you or any of them. They trust you now that they've heard you. We need you for the sake of the fondness. I don't care about the fondness anymore. Krishna's body became covered in aura, and she charged at the bull as she cracked her hands with his sword. The two struggled against each other as Krishna moved to kill him. I just want to go home. Then you can go home, but I can't promise you'll have it for long. Adam warned. Danzo might still have supporters who will follow his orders to attack your family if you leave. I won't be able to control them if you do. If you leave, you'll risk that going back. The risk that going back to them. But if you wait with me just a little bit longer, then I can promise you'll return. Fine. I don't care anymore. I'll risk whatever devastation comes. I'll see Naruto and Naruto again if it's the last thing I'll do. You'll ruin the life your lover has made in your absence, and you'll hope your missing son will just miraculously come back. Her body tilted. Oh, what? That man has created a preposterous life in your absence. Your return now before he can change things would only ruin it, and your son hasn't been seen since he fled. It's entirely possible that your escape attempt for him took his life in the process. The bull shook his head. Without without anything to show for your time here, what will you gain returning to a life in ruin? Krishna's head tilted around his sword before her aura faded away. It disappeared in time for her red eyes to brim with tears as she fell to her knees. Adam stumbled back and sheathed his sword before turning around him. Just give me some time, then you'll be reuniting properly with your family. You're not Donzo. At least you could make a shitty lie convincing. I'm not lying. I will affirm myself as a leader, gathering our people and make a difference. And when I do, you and everyone else will see. Is this what she saw? Is it the girl you thought cared about you so much? Adam paused and looked down as Krishna stared ahead with a lifeless expression. No wonder she escaped you when she did. He paused at the entrance of her tent, squeezing the fabric of the flap before walking forward and dropping it behind him. With purpose in his steps, he spotted Cinder and her crew waiting to speak with him. Time to hash out their plan. Hunting, he buried Donzo's body alone and far away from others. He had many clashing feelings towards the old man that had raised and tempered him. Despite the anger in his heart, he would genuinely miss him, but he got what he wanted. Hunting. Sienna shed no tears for the news of Donzo's passing. She had been at odds against him since joining the White Fang, as she suspected he had plans to usurp control from her when he saw fit. The High Leader had accepted the story that he was killed by a group of enemies that hunted them down since the Uchiha were still prevalent. Since he had proven himself in her eyes, she promoted him to leader of the Veil chapter. He got what he wanted. Hunting. Cinder introduced him to her partner in this endeavor, a skis by the name of Romy Torchwick that promised he had connections to other figures in the underworld that would prove useful in their plan. He was one step closer to getting what he wanted. Hunting. Donzo's research had led them to a lone man in Bakuo who had lived an unremarkable life. He had quickly demanded them away and went back to his drink. Adam offered him a new life, a chance to make up for the pain he had experienced, for the injustices his kind had lived, and offered to take charge and use the power he had been blessed with to make a difference. He turned on him and his team with a giant body of milky white aura. Everyone panicked and prepared for a fight. Adam smiled as he knew he had reached him. He got what he wanted. Hunting. They had been followed by Uchiha. The fools probably believed they could get a drop on them and squeeze them for information. It was actually a blessing in disguise, because Han saw him fight by his side and kept him safe. Among the beaten Uchiha, Adam offered Han a chance to take a first step towards reclaiming his life. The noble guard looked down at the beaten man and woman who struggled for mercy. He grabbed by one of the head, and his other settled in his mouth. He got what he wanted. Hunting. He didn't think the next time he saw Blake would be in a photo report detailing the failure to claim the dust on the docks. Apparently she had truly lost her way and was now impeding their path to justice. Krishna had been pleased, although that might be because she finally saw a photo of her son after all these years and was proud to tears. If that young upstart was getting in the way and Blake was doing the same, he would get what he wanted. Hunting. My word, ladies and gentlemen, we are trying to settle this matter. Please remain calm. My leg. He tried to attack me. I swear I wasn't. I didn't. From her name, she could tell it was Tai's daughter. She had the same bright blonde hair he had, and her sunny disposition was as warm as the sun. But she looked like an identical copy of Raven, except she was willing to smile and laugh. Except now she was panicking and hyperventilating as the crowd called her out, and her opponent was taken out on a stretcher. This poor girl was being used as a pawn, all because of them, because she allowed it to happen. Our reports to tell us this girl Yang Xiaolong is Blake's partner in Beacon. Her leader mentioned from her side as he watched the screen and looked down at his scroll. Funny how things work out, don't you think? I didn't even ask Cinder to target her, although I look forward to how Blake will abandon her to suffer with like she has so many others. You sound bitter. I am not. I'm going to be meeting her very soon, and when I do, I'll give her a chance to explain herself, and I'll be ready to listen. I'm very forgiving. I noticed came to his scroll as he turned to walk away. Make sure to watch the news and let me know how the people respond. I'm eager to see how their faith in their heroes wavers so quickly after just one show of terror. Adam, Krishna whispered as she watched Yang get escorted away by soldiers off the stage. She couldn't help but feel her eyes water watching the girl's world crumble around her. How much more of this? How much more will you get until you get what you wanted? I'm not sure. I'll tell you when I feel like I'm satisfied with the difference we've made. Hunting. End of chapter 78.